Um, sorry, guys. I just have all the presentations open. And y'all, just before we start, are you seeing it? Are you seeing my
see it,
screen?
but you have not started yet the presentation. I see your screen.
All right, thank you.
I see PowerPoint, but the presentation is not started.
I'm sorry. I'm okay. Perfect. I'm sorry about this, guys. I'm usually not this scattered. All right, and it's all good now. Sparkle, yes. You can see it clear. Anybody? Okay, cool. I'm gonna start broadcasts. Start the broadcast now. Or Nikki, you would have to start the broadcast. No, now that you're a host. Nikki. Hi, Nikki.
Hi, Martin. I believe we are broadcasting now.
Okay, perfect.
A pleasant good morning to everyone. I want to formally welcome you to the official launch of the CARICOM Energy Policy and Regulations Help Desk. My name is Sparkle Prentice, and I will be your moderator for today. Just a few housekeeping rules before we get into the agenda. First, I want to ask everyone to ensure that all their microphones remain muted unless they are speaking or unless they are presenting. Similarly, for your video as well, unless you are presenting or speaking, please keep your video off. You may have questions during the proceedings. I want to encourage you to utilize the Q&A section to post your questions as you have them. However, we have a very tight agenda for this morning, and it is our intention to be able to address as many of those questions as possible during the moderated forum, the open moderated forum. So your questions will be addressed, and you will have the opportunity to ask additional questions once time permits. And last but not least, welcome. So that being said, I want to hand you over to our very first speaker. His name is Mr. Joseph Cox. He is the Assistant Secretary General for Trade and Economic Integration at the CARICOM Secretariat. He has spent over 25 years in advocacy for economic and social policy issues and has distinguished himself in the international development partner community. As a national of Jamaica, he has been a significant contributor to Jamaica's national development, earning him the Prime Minister's Medal of Appreciation for service to Jamaica in 2012, prior to assuming duties in the CARICOM Secretariat in 2015. So I will hand you over now to Assistant Secretary General Joseph Cox. Over to you.
Okay, thank you very much, Sparkle. Mr. Peters Burton, Executive Director of the Caribbean Electric Utility Services Corporation, CARELEC. Ms. Kathleen Rivera-Smith, Executive Director of OCUR. Permanent Secretaries, Deputy Permanent Secretaries, representatives of government ministries and agencies, CEOs, managers and representatives of electric utilities and energy service providers, including independent power producers, CEOs of electricity regulatory authorities, representatives from academia, civil society, private sector, etc., representatives from, and I will not attempt to pronounce this German, the actual German designation for our friends at GIZ. Welcome everybody to the launch of the CARICOM Energy Policy and Regulatory Help Desk. The islands and low-lying countries of the Caribbean community are classified as small island development states, and consequently a significant number of the countries are extremely vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, including sea level rise extreme meteorological events such as hurricanes, droughts, and flooding, biodiversity loss, and others. Already, several member states have a history of natural hazards which frequently erode much of the economic progress derived through the implementation of policies and the modernization of infrastructure to support growth and development. Even as we meet today, a number of our countries are threatened by Tropical Storm Isaias, the 9th named storm already of the 2020 hurricane season. Impact assessments performed throughout the Caribbean for 27 climate-related disasters collated losses totaling more than 25 billion US dollars for the period 1972 to 2010. There have been instances wherein, due to the impact of a single hurricane, countries such as Grenada in 2004 and Dominica in 2017 lost over 200% of GDP. The challenges of climate change and the concomitant impacts thereof are exacerbated by our energy situation. Our countries have historically been faced with energy price and supply volatility and energy insecurity stemming from an over-reliance on imported petroleum and petroleum products, which provides almost 90% of our energy service needs. In their current state, fossil fuel imports account for 5 to 12% of GDP in the larger countries and 10 to 25% of GDP in the smaller islands of the Eastern Caribbean. Though low energy prices at times provide temporary relief to consumers, the economy does not do well when the rug is unpredictably pulled from under its feet by the constant, large, and unexpected changes in the cost of energy. This issue has been identified by a number of agencies, including the International Monetary Fund, as a key contributor to the region's high cost of doing business, which has undercut the growth potential in many of the economies within the region. The volume of GDP and foreign exchange resources that are being spent by our countries to pay for energy imports could have otherwise been directed to adapting to climate change and sea level rise and other critical interventions which are necessary for our sustainable development and resilience building, including alleviating poverty, enhancing education and health, and improving performance in key economic sectors, including the creation of decent jobs. Concerns over our sustainability goals, vulnerabilities to severe weather events, and rising energy costs are transforming the way in which member states of the Caribbean community think about their energy needs. Indeed, energy is no longer simply an economic issue, but is rather part of a long-term sustainable development and resilience strategy. Our countries possess immense renewable resource potential, and we recognize that the diversification of the energy mix within the region through the accelerated use of indigenous renewable energy sources, coupled with energy efficiency measures, is essential for safer and a more prosperous future. Consequently, some of our countries are already global leaders in the promotion of renewable energy. Many are determined to build power systems that are run almost exclusively on renewable energy sources within the next decade. Much more remains to be done. However, if our countries are to reach the various ambitions set at national levels and for the region to meet the aggregate target of 47% renewable power supplies by 2027, adopted by the CARICOM energy ministers in 2013, within the framework of a Caribbean Sustainable Energy Roadmap and Strategy. In this regard, the following are being highlighted. One, the high transactions cost for renewable energy projects. The energy transition within CARICOM countries requires the mobilization of large amounts of capital by every single member state of the community. Over $4 billion US dollars in some countries and around $20 billion US dollars in total for CARICOM. Despite the drastic cost reductions in some renewable energy technologies that are being experienced globally, CARICOM countries are still paying twice the global average for utility scale solar and wind projects. Aspects of this are due to limited economies of scale, which lower access to technologies and higher cost of capital, and oftentimes limitation in the available capacity within countries, which increases the cost and time for the preparation of bankable projects. The region has established a dedicated institution, the Caribbean Center for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency, CCRE, to provide focus on this issue, to include the establishment of a project preparation facility to support the acceleration of projects through their development cycle in the case of the latter. In the case of the former, the CARICOM Secretariat is partnering with a number of key stakeholders to drive the implementation of an integrated utility services as a means of aggregating investments in distributed energy resources. In this regard, renewable energy, energy efficiency, and energy management projects behind the meter are being financed through electric utilities via unbilled tariffs. 2, the potential impacts of climate and climate-related disasters on renewable energy sources and technologies. As the Caribbean continues to place significant focus on the upscaling of renewable energy sources, there has to be cognizance that the climate is simultaneously changing as a result of the global trends in anthropogenic greenhouse gas emissions, and B, large quantities of the renewable energy sources and technologies that are expected to power future electricity systems are weather dependent. For instance, the predicted changes in rainfall could affect hydropower production, and temperature increases could decrease the overall efficiencies of heat-sensitive generation technologies, including solar photovoltaic systems. In regard to extreme meteorological events such as hurricanes and floodings, hydropower, wind, and solar infrastructure can be significantly impacted due to inter alia wind and water damage. The cost of building climate-resilient solar power facilities, as an example, remain uncertain, and within a region that is already facing some of the highest electricity costs within the world, there is concern about how these costs can be financed without a significant negative impact on electricity rates. These are matters that are being addressed through the Regional Task Force on Climate Resilient Energy Supplies, chaired by the CARICOM Secretariat, and through the Integrated Resource and Resilience Planning in member states, which is spearheaded by the Secretariat and CCRE. Thirdly, looking beyond power generation. While there has been some discussion on the grid improvements that are necessary to optimize renewable energy integration and smart energy use, especially from small distributed power systems, such as rooftop solar panels, the degree of focus on grid modernization has been minimal. Options for smart grid and interconnected microgrid infrastructure, as well as underground and even multi-island submarine grid circuits, have all emerged within various conversations, but the issue of cost has been a consistent deterrent. As a case in point, the placing of overhead power lines, which are usually negatively impacted by natural disasters, underground have not happened to any significant degree because the estimated cost for constructing underground transmission lines ranges from 4 to 14 times more expensive than overhead lines in the same of the same voltage and distance. There is cognizance that the cost of the long outages that result after catastrophe and the associated intangible impacts to citizens, such as despair, discomfort, etc., and more so, the direct economic impacts that result from lost economic activity are high. While we recognize that action must be taken in this regard, our region is nevertheless struggling to determine how to allocate the differential costs associated with placing transmission lines underground to a specific developer, customer class, or individual consumer. This is an issue that must be addressed through the emerging innovative regulatory and financing structures that are now being pursued throughout the region. Fourthly, I want to focus a bit on resilient building designs. The impact of building design on resilience goes well beyond the building envelope and structure. There is an emerging practice wherein some buildings are being designed to provide critical services such as shelter, food, water, electricity, and communications, if not during, immediately after extreme weather events. Buildings such as schools, churches, and community centers with limited distributed generation and energy storage capacity could meet the critical needs of many of our communities that are on the front lines of climate change. This has also been addressed in part through the Secretariat-chaired Regional Task Force on Climate Resilient Energy Supplies as part of an initiative to integrate energy into the comprehensive disaster management strategy for the region. More holistically, the CARICOM Regional Energy Efficiency Building Code, adopted by energy ministers in April 2018, seeks to promote an incremental shift towards sustainable energy use within the regional building sector. Sustainable energy use within the transport sector is another area of focus, where the transport sector is a significant contributor to economic development and is increasingly linked within the energy sector, especially within this era of technology disruptions and changing stakeholder interests. Electrification within the transport sector is no longer an option, but a requirement within a shifting global supply chain, and if judiciously managed, provides a clear and present opportunity for the region to simultaneously integrate renewable energy into the transport sector while systematically pursuing the renewable power targets. In that regard, efforts are already underway to identify and promote the policy, legal, and regulatory framework that is conducive to the efficient and effective transition to electric mobility within the region. The Regional Electric Vehicle Strategy aims to specifically catalyze the deployment of electric vehicles across all modes of transportation in the CARICOM countries, and its formulation is being supported by the initiative that is being launched today. The bottom line is the bottom line. In their current state, a majority of CARICOM governments cannot afford the investments that are necessary to transform their energy portfolios, including the investments required for building climate and disaster resilient energy systems. At the same time, a significant number of investors see policy and regulatory risk as a major issue. This, of course, varies from country to country. There is belief that in general, the existing policy landscape may have discouraged the investments necessary to build sustainable energy systems with the desired flexible and adaptable features within the region. Regional CARICOM ministers approved the CARICOM energy policy in April 2013. In their current state, all 15 member states have either adopted a national energy policy or have a document in advanced stage of development. Some have set domestic targets for renewable energy use and energy efficiency, but a significant barrier which persists is a lack of translation of regional policy positions into regulatory reforms. Consequently, legislation for promoting and supporting renewable energy use and energy efficiency applications are oftentimes weak. As a case in point, only 3 member states have net billing laws for supporting the grid interconnection of distributed renewable power generation and efficient cogeneration portfolios, despite the regional agreement among energy ministers in 2013 in this regard. The view is that countries require dedicated assistance to identify, design, and implement the policies and regulations that are necessary for accelerating their respective sustainable energy markets. The CARICOM policy and regulations help with this aims to provide CARICOM member states with the required technical support to develop an enabling environment for the effective transition to sustainable energy production, delivery, and use. Without this, the plethora of initiatives, programs, projects, and actions that are being pursued, from the integrated resource and resilience planning to integrated utility service to electrification within the transport sector, will not be effectively implemented. The expectation is that the help desk will help governments in close collaboration with other key sector actors, such as utility operators and regulators, to right-size their regulatory environments to suit the existing and future energy market designs within the respective countries. Energy security has long been a challenge for the Caribbean, including CARICOM countries. The launch of the CARICOM energy policy and regulatory help desk is another positive step towards overcoming this challenge. Ladies and gentlemen, we do wish you all the best for a productive event, and more so for a successful initiative. And with that, I thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cox, for that warm welcome and very insightful remarks, particularly about the work the CARICOM Secretariat is doing under climate change, energy efficiency, and renewable energy. Thanks very much. So to everyone, we will now move to the second item on the agenda, which is a presentation that provides an overview of the CARICOM Energy Policy and Regulations Help Desk. This will be presented by yours truly. For those that may have joined us late, my name is Sparkle Prentice. I am the Senior Policy Regulations and Resilience Advisor with GIZ on the TAPSEC program, and I lead the policy and regulations component under the program. And therefore, my responsibility is to support the CARICOM Secretariat with the implementation of the CARICOM Energy Policy, the CSIRMs that was just referenced by Mr. Cox, and to support the member states with the development of an enabling environment for sustainable energy. So I will now share my screen. So just to give you a bit of background in terms of TAPSEC and how it all fits together, coming out of the approval of the CARICOM Energy Policy in 2013, which promotes a shift to sustainable energy through the increased use of renewable energy resources and energy efficiency improvement, as well as the CSIRMs, which provides a more targeted approach to advancing sustainable energy development within the CARICOM member states. TAPSEC was developed to support the effective implementation of the CARICOM Energy Policy, the CSIRMs, as well as the National Renewable Energy Policy of the Dominican Republic through the optimization of regional synergies. It is funded through the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation, that's the BMZ, with an additional financial allocation from the European Union under the 11th EDF. TAPSEC is implemented by GIZ with its main implementing partner as the CARICOM Secretariat, as well as the Ministry of Energy and Mines in the Dominican Republic. The program is structured into three strategic components. The first component is policy and regulations, and that component, the main results is really to support the modernization of the regulatory policy legislative frameworks that will support sustainable energy development nationally through a collective regional approach. Component 2 is the information and capacity building component that should facilitate improvements in the region's energy information network, as well as providing institutional, individual, and collective strengthening of capacities for delivering technical solutions among key regional players. And component 3 is finance, which identifies innovative financing mechanisms for sustainable energy projects and should increase the accessibility for local and regional project developers in sustainable energy. The help desk, in so doing, it should provide significant support under the policy and regulations component to help us achieve the main results that was expected under that component. So there are three objectives of the CARICOM Energy Policy and Regulations Help Desk. And the first is really to provide a near-term pilot facility for entities in the Caribbean community to be able to submit requests for technical assistance under the framework of policy and regulation, with the outcome being the eventual long-term institutionalization of this facility. The second objective is to provide an avenue for direct technical assistance for the modernization of policies, as well as the upgrading of legislative and regulatory frameworks, with the outcome, with that leading to creation of an enabling environment for sustainable energy within the CARICOM community. And the third is also to provide an avenue for direct technical assistance for the realization and implementation of programs and initiatives within the energy sector, therefore supporting the long-term and in some cases short-term achievement of national policy objectives and regulatory mandates. So the help desk is essentially structured into three core components. The first is the Oversight Committee, which really provides the steering and guidance for the operationalization and the functioning of the help desk. It will promote the help desk to regional agencies, entities within the Caribbean community, and has the very important task of determining the mechanism for the long-term institutionalization of the help desk. The second component is the application review facility called the ARF, and this facility manages the application and evaluation process. One thing to note is that the oversight committee is made up of management and leadership from 4 organizations, that is the CARICOM Secretariat, the GIZ, CARILEC, and OCUR. The application review facility also has the same makeup. However, it consists of 1 technical representative from each of those 4 organizations. And the third component of the help desk is certainly not least the experts consulting pool, which has been divided into 2 lots. The first lot provides support for all requests related to policies within the policy framework, and this is being led by the CADMUS group. And the second expert consulting pool refers to, or relates to rather, regulation and utility support that might be requested from member states. This is lot 2, and it is being led by GOPA International Energy Consultants. Most important is an external third-party network called a Primary Technical Resource Network. It's made up of 5 institutions: CCRE, 5Cs, CrossQ, CDB, and the Regional Universities Network. The role of this Primary Technical Resource Network is to provide a technical opinion on an as-needed basis to the ARF as the ARF reviews its I'll go into a bit more detail in terms of the help desk operations and those components. As I had indicated, the OC, which is the Oversight Committee, will determine and support the long-term institutionalization of the help desk. This is nearer to the end of the TAPSEC program. Now, the application facility, I had mentioned that this manages the application process. What this means is that the ARF will receive all submitted applications, review those applications for completeness, and evaluate those applications using the established criteria, which we will come to in a minute. If there is an additional technical resource needed, this is then sent to the Primary Technical Resource Network to get a third-party opinion. However, the resource network does not evaluate the applications. Once those applications are evaluated by the ARF will report that decision to the Oversight Committee and also communicate with applicants on the outcome of their application, and also communicate with the expert consulting pools to facilitate deployment. As indicated, the Primary Technical Resource Network provides external support and an opinion to the ARF when requested. However, it does not have a decision-making capacity on applications, as it is not seated on the ARF. And the expert consulting pool will, in the process, receive the applications, those successful applications from the ARF. They will then propose consultants from the pool of expert consultants for either lot 1 or lot 2 and provide a work breakdown structure based on the terms of reference. They will then, of course, deploy consultants and provide that technical support to the selected organizations and will execute tasks in accordance with the terms of reference. This application process will be discussed a bit more in detail under the case features section of the agenda, but this is just to give you. Now, in terms of who can apply, what institutions qualify, under lot 1, which is for policy support, we would invite applications from the ministries with responsibility for energy. This is within the CARICOM countries, regulatory agencies with responsibility for energy sector regulation or electric utility regulation, regional universities within the CARICOM Caribbean community, regional institutions or organizations, civil society associations within CARICOM, and national agencies or institutions that have an energy mandate. And they can all submit applications to request support under lot 1, which is related to policy. Under lot 2, related to regulatory or utility support, we would like to receive applications from regulatory agencies that have a responsibility for energy sector or electric utility regulation, And this might be an energy regulator or a multi-sector regulator, but once they do hold responsibility for the energy sector, they're able to submit applications to request technical assistance. Also electric utilities, also any agency within the Caribbean community that has a regulatory function for energy or electric utility regulation, as well as any agencies or entities endorsed by regulatory agencies to support regulation-based activities or electric utility activities. Now, in terms of those non-state actors, those non-state actors would require a letter of non-objection from specific state actors. This non-objection, which is not an approval, but a non-objection in the form of a letter or an email, and it will have to be submitted with the application and supporting documentation. And the non-objection authority or the entity from whom they should seek a letter or an email indicating that there is no objection to them requesting support for particular activities will be determined based on the category or the type of non-state actor. So for instance, regional actors, which for example are regional universities and regional institutions, they should reach out to the CARICOM Secretariat, the Energy Unit, to request non-objection. For national non-state actors, for example, civil society organizations, they should reach out to either the electricity sector or the energy regulator or the ministry with responsibility for energy. For national utilities, whether investor-owned, state-owned, or any combination of the two, they should reach out to the electricity sector, energy sector regulator, or in cases where an independent regulator does not exist, they should reach out to the ministry with responsibility for energy to get that letter or email that indicates there is no objection to them submitting an application under the help desk for specific activity. In terms of the evaluation and selection criteria, there is selection criteria, which is the same for both lots, and then there is technical eligibility criteria, which will differ depending on the lot. So the selection criteria for both lots include these 5 items. And it was important that we see, one, the linkages or the contribution of the specific activity to the policy, regulatory, or investment framework for the country. Also, there's an urgent need criteria that must be expressed or illustrated within the specific activity or project that is being supported. And this should be linked to ongoing activities in the country. And within the application, you should be able to show there is an urgent need for this particular activity to be done. Also, in light of COVID-19 and the global pandemic, we have had to add in the nature of the activity or the scope to be able to support remote implementation. This is very important in that we would need to ensure that any activity or project that is being supported can be supported within the framework or the restrictions that we are currently being faced with. Also, the number of expert days required to execute the project or activities and another selection criteria. This was selected as a selection criteria as it gives the ARF or the help desk an understanding of what level of resources would be required from the pool of resources to be able to execute the requested activity. And finally, meeting at least one technical eligibility criteria, I will list. So the technical eligibility criteria for policy includes all of these. So it can be just one, you just have to meet one of the technical eligibility criteria. The idea behind having this eligibility criteria was to ensure that the scope or the nature of the work is consistent with the expertise that is being offered within the pool of consultants for either lot. But also it was not made too restrictive so as to restrict certain categories of work that could be supported that we may not foresee. So in general, we want to, if you're meeting one of these eligibility criteria, such as the review or modernization of a national energy policy framework, and this would include strategies or implementation plans as well, review or upgrading of legislative framework that supports sustainable energy, a scope of work that is consistent with the national energy policy objectives or actions of the country, because of course this leads to achieving those policy objectives further down the road. Or it can include a focus on any of these following sectors listed here. For Lot 2, the technical eligibility criteria include review or modernization of regulatory frameworks for the energy sector or electric utility sector to support sustainable energy transition. The scope of work should or could be consistent with the current energy regulatory framework. Or 3, the regulatory activities to support mandates of regulatory agencies with oversight of the electricity sector or electric utilities, or electric utility activities that support the sustainable energy transition. Or number 5, activities or projects that include a focus on any of the following sectors, which are very similar to those sectors in Lot 1, however, within the context of energy regulation or electric utility support. And that is important for this lot. This lot also includes some of these activities such as PPA, development and negotiation, tariff reviews and tariff setting, regulations to enhance planning or forecasting to support capital expansion and system operations plans, rate variation mechanisms and procedures, and the development of. Thank you very much for your time. As I indicated, we will do a deeper dive into the application process later on in the proceedings for the agenda. And I will now hand over to Christina Becker-Burke. Give me 1 minute to stop sharing my screen.
Hi, Sparkle. Would you want to issue the first poll now?
Yes, very important. Let us issue the first poll, Martin. So you should see a poll on your screen. Do oblige us in answering the question to give us an indication of how many of you believe that so far, based on what you've heard, the Energy Policy and Regulations Help Desk can serve as a useful mechanism to support the region's sustainable energy transition. And I see the numbers coming in so far. So far, we have about 93% of our attendants agree that the help desk, based on what they've heard so far, can certainly support the region's sustainable energy transition. And 9% have indicated that they are not sure yet, and perhaps they do need to have a bit more information, which will be provided as we move forward. So I'll just give it a few more seconds. Okay, so those figures have not changed. So thanks, everyone. So moving on to the third part of the agenda is the expert's profile. I want to introduce, first of all, Christina Becker-Burke. She's the Vice President of International Programs at CADMAS. She serves as the team leader for the policy support under the help desk. That is Lot 1. She has an extensive experience developing energy policies, programs, and financial interventions for energy supply diversification. And she has supported the implementation of action plans in the Caribbean region. So I now hand over to you, Christina, to give us, give all the participants an introduction to CADMAS and to the experts in the Lot 1 pool.
Great. Thank you, Sparkle. And hello, everyone. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here with all of you today. And we're really thrilled to support you and your colleagues under Lot 1 achieve your policy goals and objectives to make a more sustainable and resilient Caribbean region. We can move to the next slide. Okay, you move to the next slide, please. CADMIS is an environmental and social good company. We specialize in supporting island jurisdictions. We've worked across the Caribbean region with almost all CARICOM and CARIFORUM member countries, as well as with several islands in the Southeast, South Pacific, and Oceania. We combine our capabilities in renewable energy, energy programs, and electric mobility with climate adaptation and resilience, disaster preparedness and response to support governments and utilities and nonprofit and private sectors, and regulators as well, with sustainable energy transitions and stronger, more resilient economies. Next slide, please. CADMIS has, just to provide a snapshot of our services, I won't dive into this in depth, but CADMIS has experience in renewable energy and energy efficiency, transportation, electrification, and e-mobility, climate adaptation and resilience, and disaster preparedness and response. And I'll highlight a couple areas that may be of interest to those who are on the line. We have a lot of experience in our team at CADMIS, as well as our broader roster of experts, includes people with direct experience working in government, with utilities, with program implementation, as well as on the project development side. So we bring not only perspectives of what's happening in other parts of the world and in other island jurisdictions, but also a hands-on experience of having also been in the shoes that many of you are from a management decision-making perspective. Some areas of expertise to highlight include on energy policy and strategy development, supporting soft cost reduction, all of the areas where planning, approvals that can slow down project development and can increase the ultimate cost for installing renewable energy, with electrification and electric vehicle roadmaps, tariff design, bulk purchasing programs, PPA negotiation. And we also do a lot of work on the scenarios and modeling elements as it relates to climate resilience and renewable energy planning. And then we have a suite of capabilities as well on disaster preparedness and response and all hazards training. Go to the next slide, please. Our help desk policy team includes experts from Trauma Techno-Ambiental, TTA, Homer Energy, Energy Nautics, and London Economics International, also known as LEI. As I shared, we bring direct experience working in energy offices as policymakers and in project development. And a snapshot of some of our expertise areas here, and it's certainly broader than this, but really includes all of us specialize in supporting island jurisdictions. We have robust experience in drafting and developing model power purchase agreement templates and supporting both utilities and governments with thinking through and approaches to negotiating PPAs. And identifying some of the common pitfalls that happen with PPA preparation. We have our team includes expertise in national energy transition strategy, action planning and development, support on a suite of regulatory agency and electric utility activities as it relates to sustainable energy and resilience programming, law drafting experience, and model language experience for legislation, as well as for approval and permitting processes, licensing frameworks, for example. And then our entire team has experience in capacity building and training, targeting a suite of different types of audiences on the policymaker, regulator, and utility side. Next slide, please. A couple highlights from our partners and where their expertise stands out. TTA, Trauma Techno-Ambiental, has an engineering background, and our experts include or have very robust engineering and project development experience, particularly in microgrid design and energy access in remote areas from the engineering, policy, and regulation side. Energy Nautics also has a strong engineering focus combined with a renewable energy integration perspectives and experience, looking at strategies and approaches to integrate variable renewable energy into power systems, as well as experience in grid code. Homer Energy is a software tool, and they also have a consulting arm. And many of you may be working with them, given how widely distributed their software is, but they specialize in techno-economic feasibility analyses and can support microgrid design, as well as the bigger picture questions around, well, what is a reasonable amount of variable renewable energy, and what mix is appropriate as you're thinking through how your renewable energy mix is diversifies, and as you add in storage as well. London Economics International brings in the finance perspective, as well as experience in regulation, and especially on the tariff side as well. Next slide, please. And that's it. So I forgot that was my last slide. It's a pleasure to present a snapshot to all of you. And again, we're very much looking forward to supporting you under the help desk. Thank you.
Thanks very much for that overview and introduction to CADMAS and the consultants and your expertise in providing this sort of service to some of our potential applicants. So we move to GOPA International Energy Consultants, who will also provide an introduction to the company, their expertise, and the consultants who will be able to provide support under Lot 2 of the help desk. This will be done first by Paul Freund. He is the Executive Director of GOPA Intech. He has a combined 24 years of experience working as a technical consultant with a special focus on PV and a general experience in renewable energies. He is an expert in all stages of PV power plant projects, and that includes development of contracts, technical and economic feasibility studies, system design, technical specifications for tendering, detailed design review, and construction supervision. He will be joined by Alberto Pincherle. He is the project manager at GOPA International Energy Consultants, who specializes in energy efficiency, energy policies and regulation, and technical, vocational, and educational training. He has supported and managed projects in several regions, which includes Latin America, Asia, the African continent, and in small island developing states. So I now hand over first to Paul, who will be followed by Alberto, to introduce us to GOPA Intech.
Thank you very much, Sparkle, for the introduction. I am very happy to be with everybody here today. Hello to all of you from Germany, in my case, which is where the headquarters of GOPA Intech as a consultancy company is. I hope you are able to see my presentation. I will quickly run through. I will not go into much of this, just showing that we've been recently quite successful as a consulting company and growing in all areas that we're working in, with what I perceive as quite a impressive international presence, which specifically also includes Latin America and the Caribbean. GOPA Intech as a company has 4 main areas of competence. One is power systems, where we do all technical expertise regarding transmission and distribution grids. The Department of Renewable Energies, which is responsible for the technical parts of generating energy from renewable sources. And 2 further departments which help us to process the technical expertise of the first two mentioned departments into projects that are actually running well, because we realize that originally the company comes from a very technical engineering background, but our realization a lot of times in projects is that technical issues are usually, most of the time, even in renewable energies and new technologies, not anymore the reason why projects are not successful. But we see that the aspects of policy, regulation, and everything around a project are also vitally important, which is also why we have a lot of interest in this project, and why we appreciate very much this CARICOM CARILEC initiative of providing a help desk, especially regarding issues of policy and regulation, because we think this will enable the Caribbean region to implement its goals in increasing the share of efficient and sustainable use of resources. Just a quick glance at what we do in renewable energies. We cover basically all technologies that exist. In sustainable energies, we do power system expansion planning, energy master planning, market studies, and the economic and financial side of projects, as well as regulatory and institutional advisory, tariff studies. We cover energy efficiency, especially in electricity, but also in buildings, and we run training capacity building programs in the energy sector. Just to give you maybe a little bit of background on what kind of projects we do. For example, we started a project in 2017 in the Caribbean, which was related to feasibility studies for PV, hybrid, and battery projects, which was funded by the Abu Dhabi Future Energy Company Mazda and the Abu Dhabi Development Fund, which was started with feasibility studies in 2017 and has now developed into actual projects on the ground quite well. Some of you might know some of the projects that have been implemented under this scheme. For example, I know that Antigua and Barbuda is already implemented. And we are currently continuing the work on this project by giving technical support to Mazda in the implementation of a large battery storage project in Dominica, which is currently in the tendering process, and where we will also support as technical experts the construction supervision until the commissioning of the project. Another short example of a project that we do in the region is the technical support to a fund by the German Development Corporation in Central America, which gives support to small and medium-sized companies which want to invest in energy efficiency and renewable energy measures. And then maybe just one further quick glance on projects, on one project which actually is similar to the work that we do here for the help desk, and which is something we do quite frequently in a lot of developing countries, especially also in Africa, where we support regional entities in helping their member countries to increase the share of renewable energies and energy efficiency. There are some more examples of this in my slides, which I will not go into in detail, but which you'll be able to see later when slides are shared. And that is already it from my side. I would pass the word to my colleague, Alberto Pincale, who will be our project manager leading the lot 2 of this of the consultancy support for the help desk.
Hello Thank you, Sparkle, Martin, and Paul, and good morning to everyone. My name is Alberto Pinkerle, and I am manager of this project with Heike Altrog. And our project is made by a group of 3 companies, Intec and its partners MRC and Estudios Energéticos Consultores EEC. We are managing this Lot 2 component of the TAPSEC project, dealing with regulatory agency and electricity support services. Our team of experts that we have set up is a highly skilled team of experts. We are able to cover all the possible topics of this regulatory agency and electricity services support. And should it be needed, we can even mobilize further experts in any specific, very specific subdomain of these arguments. Our team is led by team leader Henri Boyer, who is French and has a very long experience, professional experience as first civil servant in national ministries and utilities first, and eventually as consultant in many countries and jurisdictions and dealing with many projects. The group of experts that we have set up, though it belongs to 3 separate entities, has a long story of working together. We know each other very well. We know each other's specialization, and we are able to mobilize very fast for any need of the Secretariat. Thank you very much. This is everything on my side. We are really looking to work on this project and offer you our best services to cope with your needs. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Alberto and Paul, for that introduction to Bupa Intec. We will now move to the case features section of our agenda. There will be a slight switch. The agenda might say we start with a regional example to be presented by Nadia Mohammed. However, we will commence first with Mali Barnes. He is the energy officer within the Ministry of Public Utilities, Civil Aviation, Transport and Energy in Antigua and Barbuda. He's been a public servant with the government of Antigua and Barbuda since 2012. He joined the Energy Unit in 2015 within the Ministry of Tourism, then with just a staff of 2. In the following years, however, the unit has since grown and he has led on several key projects within the ministry, from capacity building exercises, energy demand and supply modeling, to the most recently completed energy audits in the public buildings in Antigua and Barbuda, which is a first for the country. Mali, over to you to provide the participants with a national case example of the type of work and the scope of work that could be supported under the CARICOM Energy Policy and Regulations Help Desk.
Okay, thank you, Sparkle, for that introduction. And good morning to everybody online right now. I'm going to try to make this as quickly as possible because, unfortunately, right now, Antigua and Barbuda is experiencing a tropical storm. It's not a hurricane, it's just a storm. So it's just rain and like some light wind. And my electricity may or may not go out. That's why we had to make this switch. But thank you, everybody, for your time. And I'll just quickly go through, Antigua and Barbuda's help desk application. I think we're the first country to apply. And I'm just going to go through like the why, the what, and the how. So thank you. Next slide. All right, so what do we need from the help desk? Well, Antigua and Barbuda has a national energy policy at the moment. It was created in 2011, so it's quite old. It's 9 years old at this point. The problem with it, though, is that it was done in isolation. What I mean by that is, at the time, it was just a small energy desk at the Prime Minister's office, and I think it had a staff of like 1 or 2, and it was basically done by that desk without any input from any stakeholders outside, either nationally or internationally. It was just a document that was made. That can't be done. That doesn't really work for our situation. We desperately need it to be, fully comprehensive given the state of the energy sector in Antigua and Barbuda. Unfortunately, it was never fully implemented either. It was basically made and put aside, if you want to put it like that. Basically just created and just put on somebody's desk. We never really went through it. We never implemented any of the features in it. We never implemented any projects based coming out of it. It was just done for the sake of doing it. And again, that doesn't work for us. It also features a lot of outdated ideas, outdated technology, and it's from a different political climate. Since it was created, we've had 2 elections, and the government has changed since then. Prices in technology has come down. There's a lot of things that have changed since 2011. So what we need right now is a document going forward to encompass all of the visions that the government would have right now, the government, the different stakeholders, our international partners, and everybody to come together to make one cohesive document that we can use as a blueprint going forward. Next slide. All right, so this is just a page from the original national energy policy. I had five basic goals, as you can see on the screen here: energy reduction, a diversification of energy resources, electrical reliability improvement, environmental protection, and stimulating new economic opportunities. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with any of these targets, right? These targets are fine, but that's just it. They're fine. They're not really specific or good, you could say. They're just fine. They're vague. There's nothing really concrete about any of these except maybe the 10% below a 2010 baseline within 10 years. Like, I don't think there even was a baseline established in terms of data. It was just, I don't know, it seemed like it was just numbers for the sake of calling numbers. And again, that's not something that is useful to us. We need data. We need decisions made from data. We need decisions driven by data, not just by feeling. A lot of these, as I said, they're fine, but there's a lot of room for improvement. The next slide, please. So a lot of the changes that have taken place since 2011. The price of oil has fallen, yet the price of electricity in Antigua and Barbuda has not. It's gone up. The price of renewable energy, solar panels, wind turbines, has come down since 2011, yet we haven't really had a significant uptake in this technology by the general public. In 2015, we had our climate change NDC commitments. This year should have been the year where we would have renewed and reaffirmed them. Again, the 2015 climate commitments was another issue where the focal point agency, the Department of the Environment, essentially came up with our national determined contributions for climate change without any real consultation by other stakeholders. So that, again, fell victim to the same thing our initial national energy policy fell to, which is it's made by one set of people with one vision for the entire country, which, that won't work. You need to have a vision where everybody has bought into it and everybody is on board in order for it to be implemented in an effective manner. I mentioned before, the government has changed. We've had 2 elections since 2011. So the government who made this initial policy, they've been the opposition for the last 9 years. Not 9, since 2014, they've been in the opposition. So this present administration doesn't really have any, on paper, any significant vision in terms of what they see for the future of the country. And I mean, it's time to update that. Since then as well, we've had several utility scale renewable energy installations. So in 2011, we didn't have any solar farms in Antigua and Barbuda. And since then, we've made 2 major farms. So we have 1 3-megawatt solar farm by the airport. We have a 4-megawatt farm closest to the center of the island. We have about 2 megawatts spread across the rooftops of different government buildings. We recently commissioned a 500 kilowatt private installation earlier this year. All of these things didn't exist in 2011, and there are plans to install more solar utility scale solar farms in the very near future. So this has to be reflected in the policy, in the action plan, and how we want to do this in a systematic way going forward. Again, the national attitude and interest in both energy efficiency and renewable energy has changed for the better. People are more aware of what these technologies can do for them. And going back to the first point, the price of electricity has not fallen. So now people are more interested in, well, how can I reduce my electricity bill? How can I pay less per month going forward? And a lot of people are very interested in energy efficiency measures and renewable energy measures, but there's no real national guidance on it. It's more like left up to the individual to do what they can, you know, like to do some research if they can do it, find and install it. There's no real guidance on that level, and that needs to change as well. And finally, Antigua and Barbuda is consistently low on the ease of business index, at least among Caribbean countries. And primarily, one of the biggest complaints by a lot of people wanting to do business here, manufacturing, hotels, etc., is that the cost of electricity is just way too high in Antigua and Barbuda. And we need to do something to try to remedy that. So the next slide, please. All right, so what do we need from the help desk? Well, basically, we need to have our energy policy updated and revamped. And we'd also like to have an action plan alongside it. So what the action plan would be is, well, the policy is pretty straightforward. It would be like maybe a 10 to 20 year plan for the government, for the country, sorry, to a plan for how we see our energy sector going over the next few decades. But the action plan, would that be a tangible accompanying document that would outline specific targets, specific projects that we can do to achieve some of the goals laid out in the general energy policy. So we would want the policy, and then we'd want to have like a checklist sort of how we can go about putting things on the ground to implement what we laid out in the policy. We need this to be as consultative as possible. We made 2 mistakes so far. That's with the first energy policy and with our NDCs, where not much stakeholder consultation was done. Little to no consultation was done with the general public, and that can't be, that's not right. It's something for the country as a whole, and you need to have as many people involved as you can to make sure this is a comprehensive document. In Antigua and Barbuda, we have the Ministry of Energy, the Department of the Environment, the Development Control Authority, the Bureau of Standards, the Public Utilities Authority, the Public Works Ministry. All of these, like, that's just off the top of my head. All of these people are directly related to, like, even if it's not directly, they're tangentially related to the Ministry of Energy. And all of these departments would have a say in what the plan is for energy going forward in the country. And we need it to be as apolitical as possible. I mean, it's very difficult to separate the politics from the policy, given that it's a directive from the government. But we want it to be a case where if it started today with the current government, if in 5 years, 10 years, there's a change in the administration, that the incoming administration is not going to throw this out just because of who made it. You know, it needs to be a case where it's inclusive of whatever your political leanings might be, and as insulated as possible from, you know, that kind of, that we don't want to taint it with politics at all. We want it to be able to be sustained, something that the following generation can use without any kind of indication of, you know, which party made it. And finally, as I mentioned before, we needed to be significantly data driven and data supported. A lot of these figures from the first energy policy, a lot of them were like, as I said before, there were more estimations based on feelings. There wasn't any real studies done to support a lot of the numbers that you may see in the first policy. There's not much done in regards to research and development into why we have certain targets the way they are. They just are. And it's very hard to justify and very hard to make concrete plans based on things like that. If we have data, if we know exactly what the energy modeling shows our demand to be today, what our demand to be in like 5 years from now, then we can plan accordingly. So we need to have whatever help we get from help desk, it needs to be supported and driven by data. Next slide, please. All right, so what would we, well, the tasks required and the expected outcome, very simple. We needed some stakeholder mapping and interviews by the consultants with some of the stakeholders that I mentioned not too long ago. So, you know, that was just that was a short list, and that wasn't even, that was just off the top of my head, but there are many, many, many more stakeholders who would be, who we would need to consult to create a policy such as the one we have in mind. We needed to incorporate the international best practices when it comes to policy. It has to be realistic ideas tied into the national energy policy, and it has to be specifically made and tailored to Antigua and Barbuda. We've seen other policies from some countries, not necessarily in the Caribbean, but a lot of them are like copy pasted essentially, where it's just the name of the country is different, but it's the same cookie cutter policy. We don't want something like that. We want something that's made for and tailored to Antigua and Barbuda. And the timeline that we're looking for from start to finish is anywhere from 4 to 6 months. From what I understand, help desk is available for 12 months. I know stakeholders in Antigua are very hard to coordinate and get a hold of. So I would say anything from like 4 to 6 months should give us enough time to do it, but given how everything is now, you know, I think the best that we could hope for is 6 months timeline. And next slide, I think that's it. Yeah, and that's it. You can contact me here. That's my email address on screen, and that phone number, that's my cell phone number. So I'm also on WhatsApp with that number. And thank you. Thank you, Help Desk. Thank you, Sparkle, for moderating. And I'm happy that I got through my whole presentation with no interruption from the storm. So my electricity can go now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Molly, for your enlightening presentation. We want to wish you all the best. We want you to stay safe over there in Antigua and Barbuda as the storm passes. I take you now to Miss Nadia Mohammed, Project Officer in the Energy Unit at the CARICOM Secretariat. Nadia is responsible for supporting the execution of the Caribbean community's energy-related mandate through the Energy Program, which aims to increase regional energy security and advance the transformation of the region's energy sector towards a more sustainable energy development path. Nadia will provide a case example, a regional example of the type of work that also can be supported under the help desk, as we had indicated earlier, that it is also open to regional organizations and institutions. So over to you, Nadia, to present to us.
Thank you, Sparkle. So today I will be presenting on the request to the help desk for the development of a regional electric vehicle strategy. And as Sparkle mentioned, the idea behind this case study and Molly's presentation is for you to get a better understanding of the type of support that is available under the help desk. Firstly, I'll address the motivation behind this request and then provide some details on the scope. So when we talk about energy use in the transportation sector, we know that in most Caribbean states, the transportation sector accounts for the lion's share of imported liquid fuels. And the sector is also characterized by a high level of inefficiency. So the need for improved efficiency and transitioning to a cleaner transportation sector is of great importance for the region for a multitude of reasons, which we are all familiar with, including our energy security, social and economic development, emissions reduction, and meeting our NDC commitments. That being said, in the region, improvements in the efficiency of fuel use are possible through a mix of improved vehicle technologies and transportation demand practices, which currently remain underexploited. And in particular, transportation electrification based on hybrid and electric vehicles is one of the key measures being considered in CARICOM. At the regional level, the intention to improve energy efficiency in the transportation sector has been articulated in our CARICOM energy policy, as well as the regional energy efficiency strategy. The CARICOM energy policy specifically highlights the action to promote fuel switching to cleaner energy sources and encourage greater efficiency of energy use in the transportation sector. And the regional energy efficiency strategy and its associated energy efficiency action plan provides guidance and targets for energy efficiency. But there isn't currently an approved strategy for transport electrification or general energy use within the transportation sector. In ASG's opening remarks, he mentioned that efforts are already underway to promote the policy framework for the effective transition to e-mobility in the region, notably a regional approach to the development of electric vehicle policies and strategies commenced in earnest in 2015 with the establishment of our electric vehicle working group, and this is at the CARICOM level. And this working group was tasked with identifying and assessing the techno-economical as well as the socio-political and other considerations for e-mobility in the region, with the aim of developing a regional roadmap on e-mobility. And based on the information and analytics which emerged from this group, the CARICOM Secretariat and the Caribbean Center for Renewable Energy and Energy Efficiency saw the need for the development of a full regional electric vehicle strategy. And this was seen as a critical component for the transition of the energy and transport sector from their current state to one that is more advanced, innovative, efficient, and sustainable. So with the outputs from the EV working group, a framework for the regional electric vehicle strategy, or REVS as we call it, was then elaborated by the CCRE. And given the foundational work which had already been undertaken, the CARICOM Secretariat requested support through the help desk to translate the REVS framework to a more detailed strategy for the e-mobility transition. And this request for the development of the REVS was made by the Secretariat on behalf of the Regional EV Working Group, which will serve as the advisory body for this activity. Now I'll get into some details of the request. The overarching objective of the request is to provide guidance to the CARICOM Secretariat, member states, and regional institutions on policies, instruments, actions to reduce energy use and energy intensity in the transportation sector through the electrification of transport, and more specifically, to develop a regional electric vehicle strategy for CARICOM utilizing the existing REVS framework. So in a nutshell, the REVS framework provides the building blocks for the REVS. It articulates the aim of the REVS, which is to deliver intelligent, modern, affordable, clean, efficient, and safe mobility solutions for CARICOM citizens and businesses through the electrification of surface transportation. It also identifies 3 strategic pillars which will be central to the REVS, and these are innovation, intelligence, and electrification. And these pillars will be factored into the key considerations for the strategy related to policy and regulation, technology and infrastructure, capacity development and awareness, as well as finance, market development, and innovation. So the following tasks are expected to be undertaken, starting with the project kickoff call with the REVS Steering Committee to discuss the scope, the expectations, the outcomes, and deliverables of the project. As I mentioned before, there are a number of existing studies, policies, and other documents that relate to the scope, and these will form part of the desk study and the literature review. And these include, for example, the REVS framework, the CARICOM energy policy, the REES, the energy efficiency strategy, as well as the action plan, some e-mobility market analyses, national fleet transition strategies, and other related work within the region. The development of the REVs may also require some additional data collection, analyses, and assessments. So this will also be undertaken, and it is expected that the REVs will be developed in close consultation with a REV steering committee as well as key stakeholders. So overall, the total duration of this assignment is expected to be 37 expert days. So essentially, the expected outcome for this request is the development of a regional electric vehicle strategy, which is based on the existing REVS framework, which identifies, recommends, and elaborates upon the required policies, instruments, and actions for regional transport electrification within the context of CARICOM, and specifically presents priority measures such as the budget estimations for the implementation of the REVs, as well as identifying regional, local institutions and agencies, as well as their roles and responsibilities that are needed for the achievement of the REVs. So through this activity with a clear strategy, the CARICOM Secretariat and the SECRE will be better able to support actions, initiatives, and programs at the national and regional level, which will enhance the efficiency of the transport sector and ultimately support the electrification of the sector. So next, using these case examples, Sparkle and the CADMAS team will give greater insight into the process from the point of application to assigning an expert team to these types of requests. So for now, Sparkle, I hand back over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nadia, for that presentation. So you have heard from Nadia Mohammed, who provided an excellent regional case of the type of work supported under the help desk, and Mali Barnes, who has provided a national case of the work supported under the help desk. So before we go to provide you a deeper dive into the application process as well as the internal selection process done by the consulting firm, we have an additional poll we would like to put up. Nikita, if you can please issue the poll. So based on what you've heard, the examples you have just heard, and also what is a priority for you and your organization, we want you to check the top 5 highest priority areas of support in terms of importance to you and your organization. This gives us a very good example of the type of technical assistance requests that could come through the help desk, whether it is more of a focus on policy revision and the sector coupling strategies, whether we envision we might receive more requests to upgrade the regulatory framework, or something that focuses more on energy efficiency, renewable energy technologies, and so forth. So we do have some answers coming in. It includes power purchase agreements, energy management and storage technologies, tariff reviews, tariff setting, climate resilient energy systems, development of grid codes, electric mobility programs. Just giving it a few more seconds as the numbers are still changing. Okay, so we will end the poll very soon. Okay, so we can see most of the participants have indicated a revision to their policy or sector coupling strategies for sustainable energy use as top priority. Upgrades to regulatory framework just above that at 69%. Then we move to energy efficiency applications, electric mobility programs, energy management, power purchase agreements, tariff setting, tariff reviews, all sharing that third spot and then moving on to renewable energy technologies. So it seems that generally the results show that we have a wide cross-section of topics and areas of support that could come through the help desk. So this is very good. It means that we can foresee that the expertise of the pool will certainly be utilized effectively as we are able to cover all of these areas. Thank you very much, Nikita and Nadia, Martin, for sharing. Here are the poll results. Okay, wonderful. So I will now move on to give you an overview of the help desk application process. Next slide, please. So the help desk documents, first of all, the beginning of the application process is to download all of the documents. Most importantly, the application template, which is a fillable PDF that can be used for online or offline completion. Most of the all of the help desk documents actually can be downloaded from the TAPSEC website. And that's the link you see, tapsec.org/policy-helpdesk/. What you will also see is the instructions on the application form. And these instructions are there to provide more information to the applicants in terms of completing the application form as well as supporting documentation. You will also find the help desk concept documents that provides much more information. I do believe this should have been shared with the launch invitations, but it will also be found on the TAPSEC website, as well as a process flow diagram that shows a step-by-step for the application process for all applicants. And also, we will update the site to include the expert profiles for Lot 1, that is CADMAS, that was presented earlier by Christina Becker-Burke, and Lot 2, experts from GOPA International Energy Consultants, presented by Paul and Alberto. So the understanding is that at least we have some of these documents currently on the TAPSEC website, and some will be updated by the end of the week. So by early next week, you are able to go to this link and download all of the documentation. I'm just aware that the applications can be submitted two ways, either through the TAPSEC website by that link above, or once you download the application documents and you've completed the application, you can email it directly to energypolicy.help@caricom.org. Next slide. So the application template, as indicated earlier, there's a full set of instructions to applicants, and these instructions cover each of the areas. So it covers the background, what should go in the background. This is the minimum information that is necessary to provide in your application, the rationale, as well as all of these 6 points under the scope of works, from objectives straight down to the reporting requirements that are necessary for the execution of that particular activity or project that for which you are requesting support. The cover page is very important. It includes most of the agency information, and it must be signed. All of the information that is being requested, it's important that applicants ensure all of this information is included in the application template. Next slide. So this is a snapshot on the left. It shows what the instructions to applicants look like. You can see under each section, applicant information, background, it talks about what should go into the background to describe, for instance, describing the interlinkages between the request and the activity, as well as a policy, regulatory or investment framework, looking at the rationale, what should go in the rationale, and so forth, everything under the scope of works included. And on the right, you see a snapshot of the cover page, the applicant information that must be completed. The title, the lot number that indicates the lot that you are submitting an application to, the name and address of the institution, the country, the name and the contact details for the responsible person, and most important, that last field under 2.6 that speaks to approval of responsible person or authority, name, designation, and signature. So it's important that this cover page is completed in its entirety within your application form once it's being submitted. Next slide. So we begin the process, and the first stage of the process is the application submission stage. And so this starts where you, top left, you download the completed application form and you complete the form, filling out all of the required information. Now, the next question is whether you are a state actor or not a state actor. So if you are not a state actor, as indicated in my earlier presentation, the next step will be to request and receive a non-objection from the relevant entity that was indicated. And again, this can either be a letter or an email. It's not approval, it's just a non-objection. Now, if you are a state actor, you forego that step and you follow the green lines, which go straight to collating the completed application form, any supporting documentation that you believe will support your application, and ensure that all the required information is included. For the non-state actors, the documents collated would be the application form, any supporting documentation that they deem necessary to support the application, as well as that letter or email of non-objection from the relevant entity. Once that is done, you proceed to the web link. That's the tapsec.org/policy help desk to submit your application, or you can email all of the documents to the email address that I provided. Once in doing so, whether it's a web application or an email application, you will receive a response confirming receipt of the application and documents. And in so doing, you've completed the first stage of the application, and it means that your application has been received. Next stage. The second stage deals with the evaluation and selection of all of those applications. So the application is now received by the application review facility that I spoke about earlier. So in reviewing the application for completeness, the ARF will then question whether an additional technical expert opinion is needed before evaluation or not. If an additional technical expert opinion is needed, the ARF will then follow these yellow lines, request and receive that expert opinion from one of the organizations in the primary technical resource network. And if I can remind you, that is CCRE, CDB, 5Cs, CrossQ, and the regional universities network. And once that technical opinion is received, the ARF will then proceed to evaluate the application based on the evaluation criteria that I highlighted in my earlier presentation. Now, if an additional technical expert opinion is not necessary, the ARF will go straight to that stage of evaluating the application based on the evaluation criteria. So whether you're following the yellow lines or the green lines, you end up at the evaluation application stage. That's at the end of the evaluation, the ARF will send the evaluation results to the Oversight Committee for non-objection. Now, this can go one of three ways once the results are sent. Either the application may not be selected for implementation, and it could be for a number of reasons, whether the application was incomplete, it did not provide the required information, it did not have a supporting documentation, for instance, a non-objection letter, it did not provide enough information within the fields or the areas that we indicate must be submitted and completed, or it may not have had the minimum information that is required. And so I want to encourage all applicants to ensure that you are following those instructions and you provide as much information, at least the information that is required to ensure a higher quality submission. And so that will follow the red line, where if it's not selected for implementation, the ARF will inform the applicant of non-selection. Now, if for whatever reason, it is determined by the OC and the ARF that some additional information is needed for us to really adequately evaluate the application fairly, that applicants will be informed of the additional information needs, and it should submit the same to ARF as soon as possible. The application will then be evaluated if you're following the yellow arrows based on the evaluation criteria, and then the results sent to the OC or communicated to the OC for non-objection. Now, for those results that get sent to the OC for non-objection and they are approved, or there is no objection, that applicant follows the green arrow and will then be informed of a successful selection. It's important to note that this stage 2 process takes roughly 3 weeks between the application being received, evaluated, results sent to the OC, and communication. Next slide. The last stage, which is the deployment of a technical assistance. So the last stage would now be for all of those applications that were successful and were greenlit to receive assistance under the help desk. That application, and if you recognize the application, is essentially in the form of a terms of reference, basic information that is needed to establish a terms of reference. That application is then shared with CADMUS or shared with GOPA Intech, depending on the lot to which it belongs. And on this basis, CADMUS or GOPA will propose experts based on the expertise required in the application and the terms of reference to provide the consulting services in accordance with what is stated in that terms of reference. In terms of how this is done, Christina will present after me, and she will go into what CADMUS's internal selection process is like for selection and proposal of a consultant. Once that consultant is proposed, please go back to the previous slide. Once that consultant is proposed, the ARF and the applicant will together review the proposal sent by CADMUS or GOPA with the recommended consultants and the work breakdown structure. If it is approved, we follow the green line and it is communicated back to CADMUS or GOPA. They are informed of the acceptance of that proposal, the consultants, and the work breakdown structure. And we do proceed accordingly to arrange the kickoff in accordance with the terms of reference that has since been established. If for whatever reason the applicant or the ARF are not satisfied that the consultant proposed meets the technical expertise required, or the work breakdown structure requires several changes, it will be sent back to CADMUS or GOPA, who will then make the necessary changes to the work breakdown structure or propose new experts and send it back to the ARF and the applicant, who will then review and approve. And this process may take somewhere around 14 working days, 14 business days, so just about 3 weeks. Next slide. And so that's the end of that part of the process up until deployment. And of course, as you know, with all projects and all activities being kicked off, they will then be managed by the individual or individuals stated in the terms of reference under the reporting requirements, with support from the CARICOM Secretariat and TAPSEC to ensure that the tasks, the outcomes, and all specifications stated in the terms of reference have been fulfilled. I will now hand over to CADMUS, to Christina Becker-Burke, who was introduced earlier, to provide further information on the internal processes for the selection of consultants for CADMUS.
Thank you, Sparkle. Can move to perfect. As Sparkle said, I'll shed some light on the approval from the consultant perspective and expert lot expert perspective of approval and expert allocation process once an application has been approved. Next slide, please. So from where I sit, I'll be working together with our team coordinators, Arthur Abal and Rebecca Coombs, to liaise with the help desk, CARIFORUM member states and country partners and the applicants. We will accordingly work with our subject matter experts from CADMUS and from our partners as to staff each request in the best way possible so that applicants are able to get the highest quality support possible. Next slide, please. And we're viewing it as sort of a three-step process. So the first step, Sparkle already gave an overview to. Once the request has been submitted and ultimately approved and the draft terms of references are prepared, I will work with the coordination team to review the terms of reference and share it with potential request leads. And in the next slide, which we shouldn't move to quite yet, I'll highlight how we've already identified potential request leads depending on the type of support requested. And what we'll do is we'll review the terms of reference, share any questions that we have, and then from there, that may involve having a conversation with with GIZ and the applicant, and having a meeting to clarify the terms of reference, make sure that we really understand the ultimate objectives and what success looks like and the timeline. And then from that, we will combine a mixture of expertise and knowledge area, as well as review experience in country or in the countries requesting support, as that is also relevant from a support perspective. We'll work with our expert pool to develop a brief proposal, putting forward our work structure and who the task lead would be, what the work schedule would be, and the rates, and also include any clarifications of the scope that we've already discussed in the previous meeting. It'll then go under review and approval from the ARF as highlighted by Sparkle. And then from there, once we're set on that front, we'll facilitate a kickoff meeting with all this, with the applicant and any key implementing partners to confirm our work plan and come up and timeline and ensure that we're on track to successfully execute the project. And then we'll deliver our technical assistance in accordance with the work plan. We recognize that support needs can change with time as well. Molly highlighted, for example, how, well, he's hoping that he can achieve his goals within 4 to 6 months. We'd be aiming to support within the desired timeframe, recognizing that changes sometimes happen along the way. And that's where we'll be setting up systems to offer flexibility as needed along the way. Go to the next slide, please. Here's a snapshot of our team's expertise. As I highlighted previously, here are a couple of the areas of expertise that I discussed before, and it looks like the key is missing, at least in my view, but the dark blue, and then there's some lighter blue, lighter gray shading highlights dark blue people who could be potential leads depending on the type of request that we receive. And then we have cross-cutting expertise across our team who are able to support, play a supporting role as well. So depending on the number of requests that we have active at a given time and the timeline and experts availability, we will be putting forward a proposed approach, recognizing that we'll be balancing that across our different team members as well. Next slide, please. We're very much looking forward to working with you. Please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. My contact information is here. And back to you, Sparkle.
Thank you very much, Christina, for an overview of the internal processes related to selecting a consultant within CATMUS and proposing that consultant up until the stage of. So I want to go firstly to the key partners' reaction to the help desk. I think it would be quite beneficial to get the view of some key partners in the help desk. So first, I would like to go to CARICOM, going to Dr. Cletus Burton. Dr. Burton is the Executive Director of the Caribbean Electric Utility Services Corporation, an association of electric utilities, energy service providers, manufacturers, and other stakeholders operating in the energy sector in the Caribbean region, Central and South America. He has worked throughout the Eastern Caribbean, Belize, and Trinidad and Tobago with several governments, universities, regional and international organizations. So over to you, Dr. Burton, to give us your first thoughts, first reactions to the CARICOM Energy Policy and Regulations Help Desk.
Okay, good morning, everyone, and good morning, and thank you, Sparkle. I trust that my audio is coming through acceptable.
Yes, yes, we can hear you clearly.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, well, first of all, to colleagues who might be in the path of the present weather system, in particular Mali, for literally, as we said in the chat, weathering the storm, our deepest thanks, and we're just sending out our best wishes and prayers to other colleagues who may be in the path of the weather system that's presently in the region. Well, Sparkle, I could just maybe take a minute just to say suitably impressed is my reaction. This is really a tremendous initiative, and we're very pleased to be a partner agency with the CARICOM Secretariat and our other international partners. As some of our participants and attendees may be aware, CARILEC has been collaborating with regional organizations, the CARICOM Secretariat in particular, through an MOU that was signed in December of 2017. And this help desk speaks specifically to the areas of collaboration that were articulated in that MOU. I must give a shout out to Dr. Devon Gardner, who will come on later. All of this and our collaboration with CARICOM is really could not be possible without Devon's relentless pursuit of advancement in this field, if I could put it that way. So we thank Devon and the team at the CARICOM Secretariat, at CCRI, at GIZ for making this possible. But specifically, it speaks to the institutional strengthening, the capacity building, awareness, energy policy implementation. And I'm so pleased about the intervention from our colleague from Antigua, who spoke to very salient points of evidence-based policy formulation, of the implementation deficit. And obviously, he's speaking from the perspective of the state agency, and one is mindful that the utility there is actually state-owned. So we really have some gaps to fill, and I believe that this help desk would be a tremendous tool in achieving that regionally and nationally. As far as the CARILEC Secretariat is concerned, some of you again may be aware that we undertook a significant repositioning through our strategic planning process. And our strategic plan for the period 2018 to 2022 represents a significant repositioning to the extent where we now, as you know, have a new membership category for independent power producers. So we now have 7 and growing in that category. We have 33 electric utility members and over 80 plus associate members. And so we see this as an opportunity to further collaborate with all stakeholders. We've had a rich collaboration with OCA as well as the CARICOM Secretariat through a series of roundtables and discussion of regulatory and legislative issues, policy issues. And so this help desk will bring further advancement and depth to the ongoing collaboration between all players, developers, policymakers, regulators, and hopefully end users and prosumers in various shapes and forms. And finally, I just want to mention internally also, we are in the process of updating our position paper on regulation and renewable energy. And this again will be a useful sort of mechanism to have some feedback, some collaboration with various stakeholders using an evidence-based policy formulation approach as we undertake our own internal review process of our position paper as it relates to regulation and renewable energy in keeping with our new strategic plan and direction and vision going forward. So I will stop here. I know there might be lots of feedback from our other attendees and participants, and to my colleague Kathleen coming on after, special greetings to you from further south. And thank you, Sparkle, for this opportunity, and to your colleagues and team members.
Thank you, Dr. Burton, for that intervention. Like you, we are very much excited, and we recognize the need to be able to provide such assistance to regional organizations in the Caribbean, and also to collaborate with these organizations as much as possible to ensure that there's a certain element of capacity building that comes through these interventions. So I want to move now to our second key partner to get her views and her thoughts on the help desk, her first reactions, Kathleen Riviere. She is the Executive Director for the Organization of Caribbean Utility Regulators, also known as OCR. She has over 20 years of utility regulation experience after rising to the post of Chief Executive Officer at the Utilities Regulation and Competition Authority, ERCA, which is the multi-sector utility regulator in the Bahamas. Kathleen, thank you very much for joining us, and I hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Sparkle. Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, we hear you perfectly.
Okay, thank you. First of all, let me say a big thank you to TAPSEC and CARICOM for the opportunity to provide some comments on the presentation on this launch today. I also would like to say special thank you to Dr. Devon Gardner, Nadia Mohammed, to you, Sparkle, to Dr. Cletus Burton at Carolec, to Simone at GIZ, and others for their support and for their encouragement to allow us as OCA, as utility regulators, to be a part of this initiative. Some of you know, as well as some of you may not know, this initiative has been in the works for a little while. And as OCA, we are so thankful that it has finally come to fruition and that it can start as of tomorrow or today, I expect. What I want to just briefly go over is some of the key points in terms of what the project is expected to achieve. One is it talks about the implementation of a regulatory framework that enables renewable energy development and energy efficiency deployment. Very, very important initiative for us in this region. Improvement in the region's energy statistics and information management framework. As Mali said, we want to be able to make decisions based on evidence, not on feelings, not on anecdotal evidence, as we sometimes have. And we all know that it is very important that if you make a decision that's evidence-based, it can withstand the test of time versus something that may be based on your gut feeling or anecdotal experiences. And two, another one is the improvement of the technical capacity within the key institutions. That is, the government, the regulators, the utility companies, as well as civil society with regards to sustainable energy in our region, which includes the Dominican Republic, because this is a CARIFORUM project. The benefits are tremendous. And what I can say is we, as the region, as stakeholders, as OCRA, I will implore my members to seek to access the help desk. There are a multiplicity of areas that we can benefit from. Some of them, as already explained, energy efficiency, renewable energy, climate resilience. As we speak, Mali is under attack by tropical storm. I'm not going to try to pronounce the name, but it is, and it's traveling up the island chain because it's forecasted to get to the southern Bahamas by Friday. So we're all in this together. We talk about e-mobility and transportation. We talk about drafting PPAs and negotiations. I haven't spoken about integrated resource plans and integrated resource and resilience plans, but all of those things are beneficial and can help us in achieving our goals of sustainable energy vision and doing so with renewable energy as well energy efficiency. I see this project as we can only go up from here. There is much scope for us to collaborate, for us to benefit. And we as OCA, we are pleased, we are happy, we are humbled, we are honored to be a part of the Oversight Committee, as well as to be a part of the application review facility. We take these responsibilities very seriously, and we hope to be as objective as possible in terms of achieving the goals that this project sets out to achieve. Before I close, I just want to say kudos to the team. This has been a very productive experience, and I hope that within the time frame we probably have more applications than we have funded, and so that at the end of the day we can even seek to source additional funding to assist us in updating our legal and legislative frameworks, because some of them are based on older best practices which have evolved over time, as Mali would have said in Antigua and Barbuda. And we also need to update our regulatory frameworks, because many of us are still under the guise of fossil fuel energy. And we all know that based on our agreement with CARICOM that we are to increase our renewable energy generation by 2030. So collectively, I would like to say thank you and congratulations to CARICOM and to TAPSEC for launching this program, and that OCA is here to assist and to support, and we look forward to working together. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Kathleen, for your views, your thoughts, your initial reactions to the help desk. I think many of us here certainly agree with what you've said. We all recognize that there is significant work to be done. We recognize that our legislative and regulatory frameworks do need updating. They do need modernizing to effectively support the sustainable energy transition and also within the climate changes that we have already started experiencing. So I want to move to open the discussions a bit to some of the participants. We have seen the questions you submitted throughout the proceedings, throughout the webinar. We've tried our best to answer as many of those questions as possible. I do see Dr. Trotz from 5Cs. He has his hand raised. So Dr. Trotz, I'm going to call on you to comment or make a question, ask a question or make some statements as you see fit.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Actually, I don't know who raised my hand, but now that I have been identified as having done so, a couple of comments. Just congrats to the team for what I think is a critical need in the Caribbean. I talk about the time factor under the climate change umbrella, about the amount of time that we really have to build climate resilience. It's same for the energy sector. I think it is urgent that as soon as possible, the region basically transforms the architecture of its energy sector. And I think this initiative would certainly go a long way at basically moving us in that direction. I'm particularly heartened to see the modality for basically the receipt of applications and the approval, etc. Your turnover time basically is very encouraging, and I hope that that would be the reality when this gets off the ground. Just one comment, in your poll 2, you asked us to identify 5 priority areas, but we did. But I would say that all 9 are critical for what we are trying to achieve. Congrats again. This has been the most comprehensive experience. All the information. I was going to ask you about a template for applicants, and there it was. You provided the information. Excellent initiative. Congrats to CARICOM, Devon and the team, and to all of you. Excellent job.
Thank you very much, Dr. Trotz, for your comments. We are certainly encouraged to see the way that it is received from other regional organizations and institutions. So certainly thanks very much. I do not see any other attendees with their hands raised. Just for what I will do quickly. Okay, so I do see Carol Davis. Oh, okay, I think that may have been a mistake. Okay, so I presume it was a mistake. We did have a few questions, so I'm just going to run through them very quickly, so for the benefit of all. So one question coming in from Greg Anderson has asked, does this mean that there'll be a limit on the amount of requests that the help desk will entertain? So just for clarification, of course, applications are evaluated as they are received, and support is deployed upon selection and finalization of the terms of reference, as we have discussed. However, to ensure that the provision of support is in an equitable manner, the ARF may, as time proceeds, institute technical assistance caps, depending on the nature and the number of submissions received from applicants. As Kathleen had indicated, there is a possibility that we may receive more requests than we might be able to facilitate with the resources at hand. However, this recommendation for caps, this determination will be made by the OC in response to the caps recommended by the ARF. But at this time, no caps exist. What we are doing is, again, evaluating the applications as they are received. And I think the onus is on applicants to do the applications as complete the applications to the extent that is required and submit it. It's really more on a first come, first served basis once it is evaluated positively. And it will run until all of the resources within the help desk are exhausted. One participant, Xavier Gordon, asked whether regional requests are considered. And yes, regional requests are considered. I think this was answered in several presentations today from regional organizations, institutions, ministries, and so forth. Who funds the technical assistance activities was another question. As indicated, it's funded by the BMZ, which is a German federal ministry for economic cooperation and development, as well as the European Union under the 11th EDF. And that is through funding that is funneled through TAPSEC, which is implemented by GIZ. Another question, is there a path for private sector to request assistance? Yes, this would have been elaborated under the non-state actor path. So of course it would require non-objection from a state actor, that is to say a government ministry, agency or regulatory agency or authority as indicated in that presentation. And just so you're aware, all of this information can be found in the concept document. We have tried to make it as comprehensive as possible to be able to answer as many of your questions as possible. One additional question that was asked, whether the help desk is only available for 12 months. So as we had indicated in this first instance, yes, it will run from now July 2020 until July or August 2021. Of course, the estimation is that the resources, the allocated resources will be utilized well before that time, but this is running consistent with the remaining implementation time for the TAPSEC program, which concludes in September 2021. However, if you do recall, the Oversight Committee, which I spoke about earlier, is tasked with determining the long-term institutionalization of the help desk. And therefore, this will provide an avenue for it to exist and function beyond the lifetime of the TAPSEC program. So this facility is essentially the first of this type of facility being developed by CARICOM Energy, and it will serve as a pilot to further test, and the OC and the ARF will be able to, based on troubleshooting, based on the functionality, and based on recommendations or requests that come in from applicants, will be able to tweak and determine what is the best avenue for the long-term institutionalization. So I see no further questions. So I want to go quickly to the last two polls that we have, if we can do those, and then we will proceed to the summary and next steps and closing remarks. Nikita, if you can do poll 3. So based on all that you have heard thus far on the help desk, we've given you regional, national examples. We've spoken about the process, the application process, the functions, the structure, and so forth. Is it likely that your organization will request support within the next 6 months, or rather, how likely? So I'm going to leave it just for a few seconds before we end the polling. Maybe another 10 seconds. Okay, so here you have the results. 53% say definitely yes, within the next 6 months, their organization is likely to request support under the help desk, and I certainly encourage you to do so. 26% indicate that maybe this might be a possibility. 11% are not sure, and 11% also said no. Can we go to the second poll? So based on today's launch and webinar, how would you rank your understanding of the CARICOM Energy Policy and Regulations Help Desk, its objectives, operations, the eligibility and criteria, as well as the application process? So the first answer, unclear or less than 30%, or do you have some understanding but you're still unsure? Somewhere between 30 and 50%, clear with 1 or 2 unanswered questions, somewhere between 60 and 80, or do you feel that you have a sound understanding of the help desk's objectives and operations, and this can be quantified as more than 80%. So just, okay, so here you see the results of the poll. The 56% indicate that it is clear, their understanding is clear. There are 1 or 2 unanswered questions. We do encourage you, if you do. Dr. Trotz, did you have another question?
No, sorry, my.
Okay, so 56% indicate that it's clear with 1 or 2 unanswered questions, while 32% say they have a sound understanding of the objectives and operations of the help desk. I would encourage you, if you do have any questions that we did not answer or we have not foreseen, you can send your inquiries to that email address that I had indicated earlier. It's in the concept documents as well, and correct me if I'm wrong, Nadia, energypolicy.help@caricom.org. Feel free to send any questions or any further clarification you feel you need to be able to support you with submitting an application of quality to the help desk. So I will now close this poll. And so now I will move to invite our next speaker, Mr. Simon Zellner. He is the program leader for the Climate Resilient and Sustainable Energy Supply in the Caribbean, as well as the Technical Assistance Program for Sustainable Energy in the Caribbean. and that's since August 2018. He holds over 25 years of experience in the energy sector. He started his professional career in Germany as an energy auditor in 1995, and he has since worked in consulting for utilities in Germany. He's worked as an advisor for energy efficiency and ESCO market development with GIZ, and he began his work in the Caribbean in 2016 with the GIZ RITA project. Simon will provide a summary and the next steps. Over to you, Simon.
Thank you very much for the nice introduction, Sparkle. Good day, everyone. I'm very pleased about the result of the last two polls, actually. Let me start with that. And that shows also that, and what I was hoping for, that you got a good understanding and overview about the policy and regulation help desk. So it's already a good indication for us. So thanks for that. Let me also quickly thank you, everyone who presented today, for the excellent input. Otherwise, that would not have led to this result of the last polls, actually. Let me also please cut my summary a little bit short. The time elapses already. I don't want to stress it too much. I will focus a little bit on the next steps mainly. I would like just to make one reference again to our webpage, TAPSEC webpage, but also we will link all the documents and all information about the policy and regulations help desk to our partner web pages, of course. But for the moment, we have, as Sparkle already outlined, the application process and all relevant documents related to the help desk uploaded in the section if you follow the link in one of the presentations, which will be shared afterwards, or if you go on tapsec.org under your opportunities and policy help desk, you will find the concept document, the process flow chart, experts profiles, and most importantly, the application form and further information how to submit it. We from TAPSEC side, we are very excited about the policy and regulations help desk, as I think that is one of our main initiatives and key elements of the entire project to provide support to the region. And we're looking very much forward to work together with you, with member states, with specific projects, specific aspects as they have been presented on a regional level and also national level today. We will support as much as possible applicants also in compiling all necessary information for the application process itself. From our side, we will, of course, also support the evaluation then for submitted projects. A key element and tasks for us and for Sparkle possibly will be the deployment and management, of course, of the experts for the both pools for assigned country support packages. And we will, of course, continuing then the support of the CARICOM secretariats, the energy program, our good partnership we have with them together, and of course also then the regional engagement and the technical assistance in any way possible to facilitate the successful implementation of projects under the help desk we have introduced today. So let me just quickly close with an invitation to all attendances today to encourage you as well to submit project applications and also to get in touch with us or with one of our partners or associated partners from the region if you have any questions and if you need any additional information about the help desk. Special thanks, of course, to the CARICOM Energy Program, to Devin and Nadia. It's, I think, a great opportunity and a great initiative to provide this support to all the member states. Thanks to the associated partners, Carilec, Clitus, and Okor, Kathleen, for your inputs, and we also look very much forward to a further collaboration with you on the help desk. Of course, the consultants, these are key for us for the country interventions. Thanks to COPA and CATMUS, Alberto and Christina. we look forward to work with you here on specific projects together. And last but not least, thanks to TAPSEC, to my team, to Teoka, and specifically a big thanks also to Sparkle, to you. This webinar needed a lot of preparation, but not only the webinar, to set up the entire help desk, and a lot of thoughts and preparation and time went into this. Thanks a lot for everything. And yeah, we look forward, as I said, to further collaboration with everyone and to start working on concrete projects. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Simon, for your kind words, for thanking all of our partner organizations, institutions, and for everyone involved. Last but certainly not least, I will now hand over to Dr. Davon Gardner. Dr. Gardner has been the Program Manager for Energy and the Head of the Energy Unit at the CARICOM Secretariat since September 2014. In this role, Davon has oversight of the energy program, which is tasked with the identification of common policies and strategies for transforming the energy sector within the Caribbean community. Previously, Dr. Gardner was a technical advisor within the Caribbean Community Climate Change Center and held multiple positions in academia, ranging from senior research fellow to professor in various universities within the Caribbean and Europe. Dr. Gardner will now provide us with his closing remarks.
Thank you very much, Carol, and good afternoon to all. Well, good morning to those who are in Belize. Colleagues, let me firstly say that I'm very elated with the progress on this webinar in particular, but even more so with the level of enthusiasm that has been displayed towards the initiative of the help desk. And of course, Simon has already given, in a sense, what I could consider much of the vote of thanks. But I would want to use the opportunity to reiterate the appreciation and the thanks that must be extended to Spark Apprentice, who is the policy expert of the TAPSEC project, who pretty much spearheaded the technical inputs and all of the preparations that went into this based on the instructions that we would have provided her. So, you know, colleagues, I really want to point out a number of things before we part here today. Number one is that this is the beginning of the functions of the help desk. And so we are not by any means going to treat this like the West Indies who win one test match and then pretend as if we have won the series. We are certainly going to treat it as the start point where we are going to really need to put shoulders to the wheel and to deliver to member states and to institutions and to the region as a whole that which we promised that we would deliver here within this session today. So this is really where the work starts. And I give you my unwavering commitment that my office, with the support that we have always been receiving from the GIZ, through the TAPSEC and other programs within the GIZ, of course, in the region, support from the institutions of the region, such as the CCRI and the 5 Cs and the CDEMA and the CDF and the CDB, you name them. Our partners, our wonderful partners from UCUR and CARILEC, with whom we have been working lockstep for the last couple of years. And of course, with you, the member states and institutions, the universities, especially now through the Regional Universities Network. Tomorrow, there's a steering committee meeting of the Regional Universities Network to really begin to establish how the university will support some of these initiatives and functions. You know, with this plethora of partners and interests, we expect that we will be successful in delivering real results to the region through this initiative. Colleagues, you know, within the next couple of years, two to 3 years, there are a number of things that are emerging. There are NDC revisions that are emerging, as you would imagine, much of which would have been delayed because of the COVID situation. So naturally by next year, the expectation is that the COP, which has now been postponed, will receive updates to the nationally determined contributions from the different countries. And within that context, a lot of that is expected to speak to energy programs and initiatives, especially on the mitigation side. There is work that is already ongoing in respect to integrated resource and resilience planning, as ASG Cox mentioned earlier, and that is likely to provide some guidance on what investment pipelines will be required within the countries, and therefore what should be supported within a policy and regulatory environment. We also expect that through the help desk, there will be some orientation on what country needs are in respect to policies. And of course, some policies may even be supported, as you will have seen in Antigua and Barbados case. And of course, that lends to the fact that we need, therefore, to very soon begin looking at how we can roll up all of these intelligence into a revised CARICOM energy policy and a revised Caribbean Sustainable Energy Roadmap and Strategy. So naturally, I already am looking at how it is that we can start framing and fashioning a CARICOM energy policy and Caribbean Sustainable Energy Roadmap and Strategy for the period 2025 to 2040, with the understanding that naturally we would seek to build out systems that are much more flexible and adaptable. If there's one thing that COVID-19 has taught us, is that disruptions within the energy sector can occur from any side. Typically, we have focused in the past on supply side disruptions. You know, we talk about the geopolitics of oil and all of those kind of things, and we typically speak about what if hurricanes and our ports get damaged and our supply stream gets disrupted, what will happen? COVID has shown us that some of these disruptions can also happen on the demand side too. And we have to figure out how we can manage and maintain our systems in an efficient and economically viable way, even when we have those disruptions on the demand side. So we must now begin to think about adaptability and flexibility within our system designs that allow us to be able to meet the requirements of our populations, even when the supply side, the delivery side, or the demand side is disrupted, regardless of what the source of that disruption is. And we expect that this help desk will help us to answer some of those questions as we seek to address regional and national issues. So I am very excited to see what will emerge from you in terms of requests. And I want to encourage you, to let us, take advantage of this opportunity. I know there are a number of persons and institutions that have already signaled interest. I know that Guyana is talking about net billing opportunities, GPL and otherwise. I know that Grand Cayman, the Cayman Islands are talking about renewable energy auction, support for renewable energy auction design. I know Suriname is already talking about strengthening the regulatory authority there, which is recently established. I know NERC in St. Lucia is already looking at a multitude of options. Barbados is looking at grid code and other opportunities. So colleagues, there are already a lot of things that are moving, but we must ensure that we don't simply keep them in an ideation state, but that we actually bring them to bear so that we can send the applications in, so that we can pretty much move them through the pipe and have the experts who we have retained support you to get things done and getting them done within a timely manner. So at this stage, I would like to simply thank all who have contributed so far to the success of the webinar. And I want to thank again Sparkle. I want to thank the team from the Secretariat. Small bit, albeit Nadia and Liana, as you would imagine. And of course, my own Assistant Secretary General, who has been 150% behind the work of the Energy Unit. And of course, the Secretary General too. The Secretariat has placed a very high focus on energy, and this help desk is actually a manifestation of that focus in that regard. I would like to thank the institutions, both regional and at the national levels, that have participated and have encouraged us so far. Our partners in particular from the CARILEC, the OCOR, and the GIZ and EU. And of course, I would like to, lastly, but not least, just simply say thank you to all of you for spending your precious 2 hours and some with us today as we walked through the principles of this initiative. Look forward to when I receive the applications, and I will therefore become expecting that when we make another webinar, we host another webinar to speak of the results. Many, if not all of you, will be there to say, yes, we did receive support, and this is what we were able to do with that support. Ladies and gentlemen, have a good day. Have a good weekend for those who are already approaching public holidays in some countries. And for those who are in the eye of the storm, be safe, walk good. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Gardner, for your closing remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the end of the official launch of the CARICOM Energy Policy and Regulations Help Desk. I'm sure we will all be leaving here now with the purpose, a strategy, and a plan on how we can make the best use of the resources offered under the help desk. All unanswered questions, as well as presentations from today's webinar, will be sent to all participants. I want to wish you an enjoyable day and an enjoyable week. And thank you. Goodbye.